Welcome back to Stoltz Bros Bible Study, episode number 7. This week we're going to get into the Sabbath and Jesus healed a guy on the Sabbath and ministering to the multitude. How many people were uh, around Jesus? Maybe the calling of the 12 apostles, but we'll see where our time carries us. But so let's just talk a little bit about the Sabbath, a little bit of background. Matt, what's the Sabbath?
The day of resting, uh, day of healing, the day of seventh day of the week,
Yeah,
the day we go to church, the day we worship God. Go on and on and on and on there.
yeah. I mean, it was so important to God for the Sabbath that he set an example for us from the day of creation. On the seventh day, the scripture says he rested, right? And then it's part of the Ten Commandments. Shall keep the Sabbath, right?
Holy. Yep.
Yep. And then even in the New Testament, we see the idea of that Sabbath rest. But like you said, it was a day for us to worship God, focus on God, get our batteries recharged, and
Reflect and
reflect and to grow and things like that, and to set a day aside specifically for him. It's like, yeah. So it's very important. And in Jewish culture, it was so important that they defined what work you could do.
Passover.
Yeah, well, Passover, but
Sorry.
no, you're okay. But I was thinking, like, you could only take so many steps in one
Right.
day.
Right.
Like one time, Jesus said he was talking to them, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and he said, "Well, if one of your animals falls in the creek or whatever, you're not going to take time to get it out because it's a Sabbath." He goes, "No, you're gonna."
You're going to get it out.
Yeah, they went way too far. Like you have to use to dig a toilet pit the day before you go potty. They couldn't do that on the day of the Sabbath, but they're like, you can only take like 5,267 steps or whatever it was. But they had made it way more complicated than what God had ever intended for it to
Yep.
be. And so Jesus is kind of unwinding some of that. And so let's dig into that here. First, chapter 2, 23 through 27 says, on the Sabbath he was going through the grain fields, and his disciples began their way picking some heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look," they must have had nothing else better to do but spy on Jesus. "Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" He said to them. "Have you ever read with David and those who were with him that when he was in need and hungry, and he entered the house of God and Abiathar the high priest and ate sacred bread, which is not lawful for anyone except the priest, and also gave some to his companions? Then he said, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore, the Son of Man is Lord even on the Sabbath." All right. So why were they worried about them basically gleaming in the grain fields? Walking along, picking off a head and chewing on it,
Because they
basically.
consider it being work.
Uh,
They were considering that as a sin. Again, they were so stuck on the old laws, this has to be done this certain way or else you're going to go to hell. I mean, in so many words.
yeah. Yeah, they were focused on the letter of the law, not the grace of the law or the right. And so they're like trying to, well, I also think they're trying to trick Jesus. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right. Set a trap. I mean,
yeah, he's like, evidently they had defined picking grain. They were so defined in their laws that they had defined what was acceptable picking of grain and not picking of grain on a Sabbath.
it'd be like saying, okay, hey, I picked up this bottle. Uh-oh,
Yeah, yeah,
I sinned because I picked up the bottle.
yeah,
You should not do that on the Sabbath. I
yeah.
mean,
It's ridiculous.
yeah.
And then he's like, well, they need to eat. They have to
Yeah.
eat. They need to eat. And so he points out the example of David. David, with his friends, go in and get the showbread at the temple wasn't made at that point in time. It would have been I can't remember, the tabernacle.
Synagogue.
The tabernacle, because and they went in, and he's like, they got the bread, and he's like, but they needed to eat, and it was like an emergency type situation. He's like, and he goes on to say, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for and then it has the Sabbath, like there's a special title there. Like, what's going on with that? I know I set you up with all the good questions.
Oh yeah, you can really repeat that question again. I'm sorry.
Oh no. I said I can't repeat the question now. I forget because I'm old. The Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath.
Okay, the Sabbath was made for man again as a day of rest,
Yeah.
a day to reflect and read, like you said, recharge the batteries, re, uh, concentrate on a relationship with God. You know, like giving God the thanks, giving God the glory, the praise, and honor. You know, distinguishing from what He's done for us, and being thankful, and communicating with God.
Yeah. Yeah. And they had upended it. They had made the law. They had taken the Sabbath law and made so many different speculations and regulations with it that instead of for man being a day like you just said, it would be so stressful. Did I break the Sabbath because I walked too many steps? Did I break the Sabbath because I did this or I did that? And it's like, man, I don't want to be out of fellowship with God because I broke these Sabbath laws. I mean, my goodness.
It reminds me, maybe not a good analogy to use, but years ago there was an interview with quarterback Aaron Rodgers. They were like, well, it was like in the middle of the season, the Packers were kind of like so team, and they were like, "Do you think you're gonna make the playoffs? What are you gonna do this? What are you gonna do that?" And he just sits back and goes, "Relax, it's okay, got time." And that again, and that's the way I see it as the media representing the lawgivers at the time.
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah, and then Jesus is like, "Relax, it's okay." Probably not a good analogy.
No, but that makes sense though, because it does kind of. This is the last verse of that section of 28 says, "Therefore, the Son of Man, the Son of Man is a title that is often attributed to Jesus, and I forgot the meaning of that. But I want you to notice that he says the Son of Man is the Lord, like the big picture, like he is the grand master, the what he
Their granddaddy.
yeah, he's the granddaddy of them all. But that idea is that he's also Lord over the Sabbath. And we talked in the previous episode how he forgave the guy the sins and he healed him, and that demonstrated his lordship there. He's also saying, "Look, I'm Lord over the Sabbath too." Was my idea anyway.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh man, we're going to get him now." So he goes into the next section. He's going to the synagogue like he's supposed to, which is what is here? But now he entered the synagogue again, and a man was there had been paralyzed, had a paralyzed hand. It doesn't say what from sin. It doesn't say. It just says a paralyzed hand. In order to accuse him, so they're spying on him again, right? They were watching him closely to see whether he would heal him on the Sabbath. He told the man with the paralyzed hand, "Stand before us." Then he said, "Is it lawful is it lawful on the Sabbath to do what is good, or to do what is evil, to save a life, or to kill?" That's a hyperbole question, man. After looking around at them in anger and sorrow at the hardness of their hearts, he told the man, "Stretch out your hand." So he stretched out, and his hand was restored. Immediately the Pharisees went out and started plotting with Herodians against him, how they might. I want you to notice, hear these two words: destroy him.
Yeah. I mean, let's just say, how are we going to kill him?
Yeah.
What's our plan to set a trap? What's our plan to?
How are we going to take this guy out?
Yeah, I mean, how can we catch him breaking the law?
Yeah. Yeah.
Breaking the law. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Oh boy, that's an old reference there.
Yeah,
So.
sorry, probably not appropriate. But,
Well, as long as we're not watching it, I don't know. But I don't know. Sorry, I don't. What? So, but they planted him there. So, like, did you notice what those were? It says in order to accuse him, and then, like you said before, they were watching him. to see whether or not he would heal on the Sabbath. I don't know why it was against the law for him to heal on the Sabbath, other than that maybe they consider that part of his regular work.
Right. Right. I mean, he was probably not reclining, not back. Well, not
Well, he was in a synagogue.
resting.
Yeah. Well, he was in worship. He was in a synagogue worshiping at that point.
Yeah.
So, good example for us to be diligent churchgoers, I guess. But that's another topic for another time. Um, so he told the man, he said he saw what was going on because he was God incarnate. He saw the man, and he poses this question: is it lawful on the Sabbath to do what is
Right.
good, or what is evil?
What?
To
What?
save or to kill? I'm like, oh my! How would you answer that if you were a Pharisee?
That's a good question. I mean, that they'd be like stumped, like, huh? What?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
what a perfect example, though. The man reaches out his hand by once again by faith.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, a perfect example of Jesus saying, "Hey, reach out to me. I'll see you through." And that's what this guy did. He reaches out and he's healed, just like we talked about with the four men and the paralytic. But you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. Chapter 2, yeah.
so but yeah,
Um, yeah. When I was looking through this, I was going through the commentary in order to get ready for today. It says, after looking at them with the word anger and sorrow at the hardness of their hearts. It's interesting because the word anger in the Greek suggests a temporary anger and not an ongoing anger. But the sorrow at the hardness of the heart is the idea of ongoing.
the Pharaoh.
Yeah, but I mean,
Well,
he's concerned about their hearts. That's Yeah, you're right about Pharaoh and the hardness. You're right. I mean, at this point, what else would they'd already seen?
yeah, I see you're saying that they don't have their heart. They don't have their hearts. They don't have their hearts set on God. They have their hearts set on what they think is right,
Yeah, right.
on what they think is the law,
The man-made religion.
or themselves.
Yeah, agreed. Um, so immediately, and so this shows you how much he honked him off. Immediately, the Pharisees, which was the probably the most legalistic sect next to the Sadducees about the law and things like that, started plotting with the Herodians, which was another Jewish sect. But the problem with them was is that they were mixing with people who were going against Jewish government. They were like Jewish yet Roman at the same time, a little bit of both.
Right.
I mean, and usually the Pharisees looked at those guys and said, well, they called tax collectors sinners, as they did with Matthew. And so the fact that these two groups are at opposite ends coming together to try to destroy Jesus suggests the animosity and problems that Jesus was causing because he was pointing to the truth and they didn't want to accept it.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we're hovering around our normal goal mark here. You got a take home point?
Yeah. Have your heart set to Christ. Reach out for him. He'll reach out for you.
Mm,
Uh, I mean, that's kind of what our past 2 weeks have also been about. Where's your heart? Where's your faith? What do you have your eyes? I mean, turn your eyes upon Jesus.
Look,
Look
or
to his wonderful face. Yes.
yeah.
Something like that.
No, that's a good old hymn.
Yeah.
Um, along piggybacking off of that, I want you to notice though, he said he was angry at the hardness of the hearts, but it was also sorrow.
Yeah.
He was he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it when our hearts aren't right with him. It makes him
God's heart was broken for them
yeah
because their heart was hardened.
yeah.
what a scenario.
Yep. And he does the same for us now.
Yeah.
That when we are not doing what we're supposed to be doing, he looks at our hearts and goes, "Man, I just want you to be with me." And Luke 15 of the prodigal son. He's the picture of the father looking for his son constantly, waiting for him to come back, and he does the same for us
Right.
as well. So, all right, episode number 7, right?
Nip it in the bud.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll
See you in 8.
Yep, see you in 8. By the way, why is 7 scared of 9, or 9 scared of 7?
I don't know.
7, 8, 9.
Oh, okay.
All right, haha. There we go, guys. Talk to you later.